Welcome to the Bariatric Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, mindset mentor, somatic coach, and transformational guide for those on the path to true healing. Whether you've had weight loss surgery or on GLP-1s or simply seeking a new way forward with food and your body, this space is for you. This podcast is a mission to change the narrative, unlearning the patterns that no longer serve you, moving beyond quick fixes into deep, embodied healing, lasting mindset shifts, and true self-leadership. We are healing from the roots, rewiring the mind, regulating the body, and returning home to ourselves. We are here for growth rooted in honesty and self-trust because that, my friends, is the foundation of healing. So grab your cup of joe or your H2O and let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Bariatric Mindset Success podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, and I am really excited today to have a member of my team here with us. And I can't wait to share her amazing story and to share with you guys how far she has come and maybe even a little bit about her journey to becoming a coach and how she's really been coaching all along to some extent in her life. So a big round of applause for Frances Vogel.
Well, hi, Kristen.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yes, I have been on this journey for, many, many years, but I am a post-bariatric patient, about 7.5 years. But the weight loss and the personal identity journey has definitely been decades. And so, starting with you, you and I started working together in 2020. I took your coaching certification, I think in 22, and I've been coaching with you ever since. And it has just been kind of icing on the proverbial cake of my journey because it's allowed me to utilize what you've taught me and help others in their journey and continue to keep me accountable as well.
I love that. I want to go back even before that. But like, when did you first have surgery? And maybe even before that, when did you realize, like, what was the pivotal moment that made you say, I got to do something?
Sure.
We all have done stuff before we do surgery. So like, that's never really the beginning, but it's usually the beginning of our surgery journey.
Sure. So, truly, I was never, I'm going to use this word thin. Child, I was always, had a little bit more weight than what was socially acceptable, even though now I really realize I look back at that, go back into those years and think, wow, you were actually really healthy, but nobody honored that because that wasn't what the media was putting out. So, we're starting as a young child into teen years, puberty, 3 babies later, just the weight compounded. And as I started working on myself in my 20s, I realized, through therapy that the eating was a much bigger issue. And by the time I got to the place where I realized that I was utilizing food for comfort, for, numbing, for all of the reasons why, most of us post-trauma, I grew up in a traumatic environment. I was using it to soothe myself and to get my regulation. So that's kind of like a little bit of the backstory. But unfortunately, by the time I got to the place where I understood that and had already made some of those lifestyle shifts and changes, I had 100 pounds to lose. And that's where the metabolic, disease, as we're starting to learn more and more about, really it came into play for me. I'm like, wow, there is a big thing here that I'm trying to overcome. But everything I'm doing isn't working. And it's not, even though I believe that I had already shifted some of my mindset, not all of it, because it happened till post-surgery. I laid a great groundwork for it. And I believe that is because I had that groundwork and created the success that I've had post-surgery. So I I don't even know exactly where I was, weight wise, if we want to talk numbers pre-surgery. I mean, I know where I was when I went in for surgery, and I've lost and maintained a good 90-pound weight loss. And it fluctuates. I have had some regain. I have, at my lowest, I was about 110 pounds weight loss, but I knew that wasn't sustainable. So, and we can get into all of those details certainly at some other point, but that's kind of like the big picture of my journey, for weight loss. And the biggest part, I think, for me is shifting my mindset around diet.
Yes.
I already knew how to exercise. I already knew that movement was key for me.
Yep.
And for mental health, not for weight loss, but for mental health. But I had to be able to get the weight off to move. So I hope that kind of filled in some of those gaps.
No,
there.
it does. And I think you hit on a key point, because we see, because we work together, and it's a lot of the people that we work with are so focused on the scale, and not to go down that rabbit hole, but you hit the nail on the head where you're like, I've maintained, this number, but let's not get in the weeds with it. I mean, and I've said this in many places, but the folks listening here may not have heard it. But, I can, hello, I'm Kristen, and I'm in perimenopause, right? Like when I do, when I'm on my menstrual cycle, I could be up 5 or 7 pounds. And, that's going to be a whole different episode where we'll talk about, what I call barimenopause, right? Perimenopause, menopause, and barimenopause, being menopausal, perimenopausal when you're bariatric. That's for another time. But, we go through different cycles. And it could be, again, salt, it could be water retention, it could be a lot of different things. And sometimes we're so connected to the scale, and it's, and then we also look at, which you were talking about, movement, and absolutely for mental health. And I learned that, not right after surgery, but a long time later, and that how important strength training was too for maintaining our muscle mass, for the sake of not just longevity, but also for the sake of it being a support for fat loss, right? So if we have too much fat, and if we have too much fat and are not enough muscle mass, it's like, yeah, we might be quote unquote skinny on the scale.
Yep.
But that is not really beneficial for our health. And so I think that says a lot, because there are folks that are like, oh my gosh, I'm up 4 pounds. Okay, well, you just took let's say a 7-day trip, like maybe wait a couple days, you get scale and things like that. But, on your journey, you had surgery, and remind me, because is it like 2017 when you had surgery?
2018.
2018. Okay. Well, and then another, I think part of your journey that is also important for folks to know, because I send people to talk to you about this all the time, and I don't even know that you know it. But when they're getting ready to have plastics, or when they're thinking about having plastics, I'm like, go talk to Frances, because she has had it. And I think when I get ready to have plastics, whenever that will be at some point in time, I will come to you, because you also recognized that was another post-op procedure that you had, like, and this from our group and stuff. If I know somebody has had a revision, and I'm like, go talk to that person, go talk to this person, because I think that connection of really understanding that personal experience, especially if you don't know anyone who's gone through it. We can read stuff online, in groups all day long, but it can be really scary. Yet when you know someone who, that like, know, and trust, and that you've worked with, it's like, what was your experience? And so I know you've had the surgery, okay, 2018, then you also had plastics.
In 21. Yeah.
Yeah, in 21. And so I want to hear a little bit about that experience, because it is part of your journey. And, how did you handle that mindset wise?
So I want to back up just a second because
Absolutely.
I think that the plastics are important, and that particular part of my life was I had to do some work, right? So you and I were doing work, and you and I I had been working on some foundational shifts for myself. And the number one, I think, foundational shift was trusting myself and trusting that what I was doing and how I was doing it based on what my doctors and my coaches and those who have been successful. I was told pre-surgery, so I have a 12-step background, so I do come from some recovery background. So I throw that in there as well, because that's a huge piece. I've been in recovery for over 30 years, so I have a little bit of that thinking. And somebody told me years ago is get with the winners. Sit with the winners, the people that are successful in long-term sobriety, long-term emotional recovery. Those are the ones that you're going to learn from. So that's what I took into post-surgeries. I took in, I'm going to sit with the winners. I'm going to find the winners. It's kind of like that old saying, find the helpers. I believe it was, Mr. Rogers who said that. And
by the way, I've never heard this. So I'm like, this is awesome. I've never heard this. So yes, bring it, girl.
So connect with the winners, right? And that's, and I'm not saying that we are winners. I'm saying we are in the process of, playing this game of life, and we are doing the work. And, I don't want to put it in winners and losers, but that's just black and white of thinking. So that's what I did is I learned from those that have come before me in this weight loss journey, in this post-bariatric life journey. I've got to stick with them. So I started sticking with you guys. And I learned to trust myself. And there are parts of me that I had to really heal because I did not trust myself. I didn't trust myself in the dark. I didn't trust myself hidden behind the pantry doors. I didn't trust myself in the car at times. So I had to heal those parts of me as I walked this journey of, okay, I'm going to have plastics. How can I trust my body, right? Because my body has betrayed me. For many years, it betrayed me. It yo-yo dieted. It didn't understand, calories in versus calories out is not a factual, a test on losing weight. It doesn't work that way. And I wish 20 years ago I had the education and the knowledge that we have today. It wasn't available 20 years ago. We were still doing calories in, calories out. Now it's, wow, we understand that protein is a huge aspect of fueling our body. Fats. I was so afraid of fats going into this, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on this. I did everything I could to get away from fats, and to me, that is probably one of the most detrimental things I've done throughout the years. Is I ignored that my body needed those fats, my brain needed those fats, and I chemicalized them because that's what the media and the food industry told us to do, is to fake the fats. Well, what did we do? We got fat. So so anyway, so that's kind of where I had to learn to trust myself around food, around trusting the healing process. Plastic surgery was not an easy road. It took a good year for me to get back to pre-plastics weight. And that I had to trust the process. I had to work with you. I had to work with my personal therapist. I had to work with my nutritionist. I had to work with my team to continue to remind myself that 10, that 15, that 20. I mean, I left surgery probably about 30 pounds of water swelling up, and I did not get on the scale. I refused. It was probably a good 6 months after surgery before I started getting on the scale and then I could tweak some things, right? Because it was, okay, maybe I'm eating a little too much salt. Just I need to up my protein. Obviously, post-surgery, you should up your protein anyways, because it helps with healing your body. Lymphatic massage was a huge component. So just a little quick, 5-minute snippet of what I went through as far as the, post plastics go. I am extremely pleased with the work that I had done. I want to go back and get more done. And it's not about making myself look a specific way. It's about making the insides represent the outsides as well. It's my insides feel really good, and I want to express that on the outsides. And I'm not doing it for anybody but myself. And if you can't say that, then don't have plastics. I mean, if we're going to get on a plastic journey conversation, if you're doing it for your husband or your mother or your brother or your spouse or your wife,
society's acceptance.
Don't do it. Don't do it at all, because that's not. You need to be able to do it for yourself, and it's expensive. Unless your insurance covers aspects of it, it's a financial, expense, and you've got to walk through that as well. And there are specific surgeries where you're not going to find that nothing's going to be perfect. I'm not looking for perfection.
Right.
And when you let go of those expectations, plastic surgery can be much better. If we think we're going to walk in there, we're going to fix it all, and we're going to come out with, no flappy skin anywhere, then we're going to have to adjust our expectations, because that's not the reality.
You know what? You just said something that I want to bring it back to weight loss surgery for a second, but I love your reflection on the plastics, because it is a part of your journey, and I wanted to bring that in. But going back to weight loss surgery, because these are a couple conversations that I've had with some folks over the last couple of weeks, which we know this. I talk about it all the time. You probably talk about it all the time. But weight loss surgery, I'm going to just say it doesn't fix us, right? So yet we've heard the saying, the judgments that some people carry about the easy way out. I know it's not. You know it's not. I knew that without really knowing, because you don't know, like, it's kind of like when we talk to pre-ops, because we'll have pre-ops that we work with where they're like, what is it like? And it's like, we can describe it all day long. People described it to me all day long, pre-op. It's really hard to articulate. It's just one of those things that you have to experience, because I can talk about it and share and give examples, but until you've gone through it, because everybody's experience is a little bit different. But coming back to that statement of, weight loss surgery. And I've had this conversation with a couple people where they verbalized it differently, but they said, I thought the surgery and the shrinking of my stomach, I thought it would fix this. I thought it would like nip it in the bud. And there was a surgeon. I honestly don't remember his name. He's out of Orange County. So forgive me for I am not going to be able to quote him. I am quoting him, but I don't know his name. But he said surgery doesn't prevent poor behavior, or, I hate to go all or nothing, bad behavior. It supports and promotes healthy behavior. And I think he might have said good behavior, but I don't like the good and bad. And you know that we talk about that. I don't like the polarization, yet that's what he said. And it always stuck with me. And I heard that probably 5 years ago, and it always stuck with me because it was like, man, that's so true. Yet there's a lot of folks, zero judgment, that, and I know because I was desperate for some change prior to my surgery. So I know that feeling of desperation, of wanting to live in a smaller body, the whole societal media representation of people who live in larger bodies. Not going to get on a tangent, but just saying I get it, right? The desperation of just wanting that change, that sometimes people will think, okay, this is it. this is it. And so when you had weight loss surgery, right, because there are the metabolic issues or all of these things, where was your mindset in terms of, and you may not even remember, like, I don't know, but like, where was your mindset? And because you said you knew that you needed to do the work. I'll be honest, I didn't know I needed to do the work until post like cheeseburger in a blender. It was like, I had a come to Jesus moment. Like, okay, girl, like you got a problem. And it was like, you didn't realize before this, like you got to have your stomach cut out. Like you didn't. Then it's like, it took that for me to be like, so we all have different moments. And I guess that's where I'm asking very long questions to say like, where, did you ever have that, okay, this is it. This is gonna be the thing that carries me through? Or was it more of like that knowing that, all right, I've got to put my, my boots on, kind of like boot camp. You're like, I got to put my boots on. I got to be ready to march.
There were definitely moments prior to surgery where I felt like something needed to shift. So I had a kind of the biggest moments in my life was I cleaned up my diet greatly cleaned up my diet. I have 3 children, at the time I had 2 teenage boys, and a young tween girl. And the boys were eating massive amounts of food, as boys do. Yes. If you raise teenage boys who are very active, I have a 6'5" and a 6'3". They were super active, and they ate. And we ate all hours, we were at all the places, we did all the things. So lifestyle was a huge issue. So my first son went off to college, and they're a year and a half apart. So they were a year apart in grade. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got to clean up the way I eat, because I knew that was part of the problem. And my knees were killing me. They were literally swollen every day at the end of the day. I'm 275 pounds. I'm 5'11", so I carried it a little bit better than most, but my knees were just shot. And I knew the come to Jesus for me was, Frances, you're either going to get your knees replaced or you're going to have to do something about your weight. I cleaned up my diet, and I realized this was going to be really, really, really challenging just because of the amount I could consume. It doesn't matter if it's clean food or not. It was the amount that I could consume. So I walked into this surgery understanding a few things that a lot of people don't understand. And one of them is I needed just to alter the size of my stomach so the consumption amount was going to be less. I did a lot of research about the hormones that happen in the belly, in the gut, and understood that I was overproducing some hormones that was making me think these hormones were telling me I was hungry, and if I didn't get food, I was going to die. And this is where I think that some people they just think that this is, we're cutting your stomach out and it's just your stomach. No, this is where hormones are created. There are neural pathways that happen in your gut and in your belly that talk to your brain, that tell you if you do not consume food, you're going to die. And that's kind of that. And what creates that is genetic stuff. But I also think that yo-yo dieting, that terrible deprivation that I did for years because I was trying to meet a societal image.
Right.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think that it did, in the sense of what was my moment. That was my aha moment. My aha moment was you got your choices.
Well, and also it sounds like what I think is really important is there are folks that, I cleaned up, not me, but like that idea of, I clean this up. I kind of was on this regimen. Like you can't, it's almost like when you're hot, it's like, I can't get any more naked. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, absolutely.
I can't clean it up anymore. Like I've cleaned it up so much, and it's not creating a change. And I think also, and we'll talk more about this in another episode, but I do want to say this is why I also think, and you you know this better than I do, but that this is why GLP-1s for post-bariatric patients who are exhibiting that reignition of some sort or recalibration of their hunger hormones, not necessarily in a good way, because we have that period right after surgery where it's like, I'm not hungry, right? I don't know if you went through that, but it's like, people talk about the honeymoon, the 18 months, yes, the 24 months. I know that there are a lot of other surgeons and medical providers and nurses and stuff that talk about that. But at some point, some folks hit a wall, right? Because of the genetic component, the metabolic component, and that hunger can come back, right? And I think there's this other nuance or judgment that, well, if you're just eating clean, right, that, you wouldn't have that. I do want to say, yes, sugar begets sugar, but we also need to realize that somebody can be on low sugar and still need a GLP-1, kind of like you can be eating clean and still need a GLP-1 medication. And I think that isn't discussed enough. And we're not necessarily having a whole episode on GLP-1s, but I do think that there is that genetic component that we've got to get clear with ourselves on what we need. Because that's also another thing, because I've seen it online where people have said, oh gosh, I'm a failure now because I have to have this. And then, there are others that are, there are different people sharing different avenues of it. But the other part that I see most frequently is the judgment, similar to the judgment of people having weight loss surgery. I know for me, it saved my life. I don't know where I'd be without it. And we know a lot of folks who could say the same thing. And so maybe that will be the case also for the GLP-1s. It's still new, still new, but we'll see more of people who are sharing their journey with that and how it's not just the physical transformation, but also the mental and emotional transformation, and not having, the cravings, but it is the lifestyle change is important.
And I think that probably one of the biggest things, if I could tell somebody pre-surgery, is this is a tool. It's a tool in your toolbox, and medications are tools in your toolbox too. There is no magic wand. There are people who have this surgery, have one of the surgeries, any of the bariatric surgeries, and they come out and their life is altered so greatly, and they are on this path of perfectness. Okay. Because there are those folks out there. There is a small percentage of folks that really do extremely well. They don't do any of the work we're doing here, right? They're just, for some reason, it just was it worked perfectly. And then there's a lot of us that are in that middle ground where there's work to be done. We gotta get in there. We've got to, heal some trauma.
I'm still doing work. We're all it's a journey, as you said.
And it's a lifelong journey. And if we're willing to open the book and start rewriting our story and really being truly taking ownership of what our story is going to look like, we do not have to be a prisoner to a restriction all of our life. We can live life and we can be happy, joyous, and free. And there's at certain levels, and there's different, marks of our lives. I had a coaching client recently that I was working with, and she was talking about this great summer that she had a year ago, where, she just kind of was, I don't want to say off the rails, but she was, she really had a great time. She did all the things, and she ate some of the things that she wouldn't normally eat, but she had a great time. And in hindsight, would she have changed it? No, because she had some experiences, and she learned a lot about herself during that time too. Right. She learned to trust herself more. She learned that, hey, if sugar begets sugar, right? So if I'm consuming sugar at every meal, and then it gets more and more and more, that's where I need to really back things up. So you learn some of these things about yourself.
Right.
Nighttime eating is another thing. It's like, what are you trying to soothe? What are you trying to, a lot of times at night, people know they need to rest, but they don't. And so they find themselves in the kitchen trying to get food in their body to help their system calm down so they can rest, instead of going to bed and putting themselves to sleep. And that's, there's some pillars, right, that are really important for this journey, and sleep is one of them. And it is as a society, that is one of the things that, you can open any book, look online at anything. The number one key to having success in life and having joy, because it's more about joy than it is about success. Having joy in life is getting good rest, sleeping well. And we as a society lack that drastically. Thin people, healthy weight people, they really lack that. And so they're manifesting other things in other ways. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, they may not have the weight pound issues that, that we have, but they're still suffering from depression. They're suffering from anxiety, all the things. And we can go down a whole rabbit hole about that.
Oh, for sure.
But sleep is huge. And I don't even really remember exactly why I mentioned that, but I just know that is a huge component on getting our rest in our body.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you had brought up a coaching client. I think what you, I think what you were connecting it to, because hello, ADHD and squirrels, we have them. But I think what you were saying is when you can be honest with yourself about what you're doing, and that you wouldn't change anything, it also not just builds that self-trust, but it gives you in some ways the guardrails to go, okay, what are my boundaries with me? I am having fun and I am enjoying, and I'm just making stuff up because it's what I do when I go out of town. But it's like, if I'm going to Italy, I'm having a cornetto, which is like a croissant. Like I'm having that. Like, when we did go, whenever it was 2 years ago, I wasn't crazy about the gelato. It was also November. So I didn't get it because I didn't want it. It didn't speak to me, but it wasn't from a place of restriction. So I think when you have someone who's going somewhere, and whether they're going somewhere or just at home with their kids, right? It's like, what is it that you're, to use that word, manifesting? What are you bringing into your life? We can bring in pleasure without it being solely focused on food, and we can enjoy food without food being the centerpiece. Food is food. The thing that I say a lot is food is still going to be there. Food's not going away. We're still going to eat. It's really about understanding what our priorities are and what's most important. And so how can we have, whether it's, because at the time of us recording this, it is kind of like, we're kind of like not quite fully engaged in summer, but we are like on the brink of summer, and it's where, it does shift. And so there can be, for folks who do have small kids, or if you're going on I don't know, not me, but a bunch of people, you may be going on a wondrous European vacation or something. And so there are going to be those, and I will use the word temptations. And yet I think that's where we get to, right? Or we have the opportunity to make decisions about what's most important. And if it's like, I want all the things, right? It's okay. And when we're indulging, are we mindful? Are we conscientious? I think that's another important thing. And when we're in diet mentality, which, I want to ditch diets, but when we're in diet mentality, there's a lot of shoulds. And so
it does black and white thinking. It really does. If you're not careful about, there's a difference between I want all the things, right? I want all the things, but I'm going to honor my body, because if I have all those things, I'm going to feel poor, and it's going to make me feel a certain way. So let me look, and let me make some decisions about taking ownership and really being in control of my own way I'm going to feel. There is nothing worse than over consuming and feeling terrible. I mean, I think every bariatric patient has experienced some type of dumping along the way. And sometimes it's intentional, it's like, oh, I really should not have eaten that. And sometimes it's like, oh, wow, I've eaten this 1,000 times and it's never upset my system before. And it did this time. And so I think that there, when we get into that all or nothing, that binge type thinking, and this is, we can have a whole podcast on binge.
I know.
Because that's the old thinking of the way we, the diet mentality, right? It's restriction.
I'll start on Monday.
Yeah.
Let's have a party now. Let's order it all.
Yeah. And so one of the things we coach here is trying to be in that 80-20 lifestyle, right? And maybe sometimes it's a 90-10, depending on if you just spent 70-30 in Europe, right? It's
60-40. For those who don't know what we're talking about, it's like the whole idea behind the 80-20, I didn't create it. It's like very mainstream, but 80% of the time you're focused on your BBs or your bariatric basics. You're focused on your protein, water, supplements, sleep, movement. You're focused on, and some people are triggered by the word clean eating. So it may not be, the official version of that, but you're focused on meeting your protein goals, your health goals, your wellness goals. You're 80% there and 20% is left to the indulgences or whatever you call them, where you may be like, I'm having gelato tonight, like it's happening or whatever. And so when we're in that 80-20, and some of you guys know I've shifted away from control into in charge, but I know that people are still using control. So it's, we can say that. Yet the thing is we feel a lot more, it's like, in charge is like management, right? So it's like, I'm in charge of this choice, because it's not about the control, but it can feel that way. It's like, wow, I'm empowered. I'm empowered by this choice. And I get to have this. It's an opportunity. It's a choice. And when we're doing that, it's like, I don't know about you guys, or our listeners, that like, I feel a lot more proud of myself, but not in a restrictive way. There's a time like that's there. It's not going away. And that's also helped me a lot in terms of mindset shifts. Is the old mindset shifts that I would carry is, this is the last time I can ever eat it because I'm starting Monday. Well, when you have that mindset, and then I would lie to myself, because my last time would be every day. And they'd be like, starting Monday, and then I wouldn't start. And so it just kind of, it created a kind of a negative domino effect where I wasn't being fully honest. But then when I stopped saying this is the last time, because that creates scarcity in your mindset. And so this is not the last time I'm ever going to have ice cream. This is not the last time I'm ever going to have pizza. This is not the last time I'm ever going to have ... whatever it is. But when you tell yourself that, it makes you feel like you got to gorge it or you got to have a lot of it. So I just wanted to kind of explain that. So the 80-20. So when you are, I don't know, I had a client who just came back from a cruise and she was like, on my cruise, 60-40. And I was like, okay. And how did it feel? So zero judgment. It's like when we own it and when we can acknowledge it, I think, and when we're like, and how are we doing now? It shifts, because again, there are those that are the food police or whatever. And so when we can get out of that, I think it really just helps tremendously.
And being in a society where, people put so much shame around obese people eating food, then that is where we always, I think that, even after we've lost the weight and become a more normal weight, there's still so much of that shame that's wrapped up around. And so that's a lot of the deeper work that needs to be done. And it comes here, right? It comes in those, in this group.
Yeah.
But it also comes in the daily reminding ourselves that food is fuel, and it can be for fun, but at its base, it is fuel. And I want to make those choices to fuel my body to be optimal, to have its, and when we, I also thought about, there are so many trigger words these days.
There's trigger words. Somebody can be triggered by fuel, but I think that's because sometimes it can be going back to diet mentality. But if we can reframe them and use the words,
yes,
I think the more that we use words,
yes,
and we can share, if this word doesn't work for you, let's find a different word, because sometimes people associate meaning with things that are so heavy, and that's just another layer.
And it is. And if you are triggered by a word, there is something deeper there for you. And that is a great opportunity for learning and for growth. And I would suggest anybody who is triggered by a specific word, write that word down. Get to know that word. Understand what that word is doing. Why is it? Who said that to you? Was it your mother? Was it your father? Was it your friend? Was it your spouse? Was it your teacher? Was it society? Because we have got to get to the root of the trigger so that we can do the healing, so that when we are triggered, right, we can then make different decisions and be aware of what is triggering us. There are events that trigger people. I remember the first time I went to a ball game after surgery. Oh, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't eat that, hot dog. First of all, I can't put it in it would not fit, right? Right. Because I was relatively soon after surgery. I don't want it in there, but oh my gosh, how can I enjoy this experience without it? And without going into a whole kind of another conversation, there is so much that FOMO post-surgery that we have to really work on. And FOMO is fear of missing out, for those that don't know what that is. And thinking that we can't enjoy birthday parties, weddings, anniversaries without having specific foods. And this is where we get creative and we look at, how can I have some self-awareness, right? Enough to know that, okay, I can experience this without having the food on top of it. And you can also be in charge and make the choice to have the food if you so choose, just at a smaller quantity. And these are, all this is just kind of, why is it? Why do we have to shift our mindset, right? Why is it about that? And that's one of the questions that we talk. Why is it not about real motivation? Why is it truly or why is it more about mindset than it is about motivation? Because motivation is important as well, but it's truly. So I think that these are really important topics, and they can go so much deeper, but without getting onto that other topic.
Oh yeah, I feel like this has opened up so many other topics for us to talk about. And I think just talking about trigger words, like we could go into another avenue, but I will say for a long time I was triggered by fat, by the word fat. And a lot of people, there's been there's a whole movement, Health at Every Size, that has reclaimed the word fat, right? And so I still struggle with it. And so I think and it's not, I will be honest, it's not as been a high of a priority as other things for me to work on, because it doesn't come up a lot. So that's the other thing, is I think we also need to prioritize what are the things that are impacting us. And if that's a word or a scenario or situation, I think trust for a lot of people is going to come a lot higher than, let's say, something like that. But it's more of what's impacting you and things like that. So this has been great. And we are going to have future episodes together. We are going to kind of continue the conversation. So this was kind of like an introduction for the Bariatric Mindset Success podcast audience, to get to know more about you. And you are a member of our community. You are coaching bariatric mindset clients, and I'm so grateful to be working with you. Anything else that you want to share about your journey, or you think that either a newbie or a veteran bariatric patient needs to know from your experience, both as a patient, as a client, as a coach, as somebody who's walking this journey? Because we're all, there's that Ram Dass quote, we're all just walking each other home. So that's walking this journey. And somebody who you have a 12-step recovery background. So, I mean, what else do you have to share?
Sure. I think that the thing that comes to mind as, comparison is the thief of joy. And when we are in judgment and in comparison of ourselves and others around us, we are robbing ourselves of living our lives joyously. And to me, my ultimate goal in life is to be happy, joyous, and free. And that is something that I absolutely came from a 12-step program. It is, to me, that means that I want to wake up every day and be proud of the choices that I'm going to make. I want to be able to go to bed at night and be proud of the choices that I made during the day. And the ones that I am not proud of, I can make amends to and continue to honor myself the next day. I'm not going to live my life perfectly, but I want to be free of judgment, of shame, of other people taking my power away. I want to live in my own power. So those are the kind of if I could give anybody in this community, whether you're pre-bariatric surgery, post-bariatric surgery, 1 year out, 10 years out, 25 years out, if you're on a GLP-1 and you're just beginning this journey and realizing that you've got to do some mindset shifts in order to keep the weight loss, your weight loss goal, your health and wellness goal, that's, remember that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for being here and sharing your story. And thank you, everybody, for listening and for being here with us on the Bariatric Mindset Surgery podcast. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Kristen.